Yeshua, confession, and sacraments are dark instruments. Catholic confession. What sense does it really serve? I had the impression as a child that it's an eyewash. People confess, feel relieved, and continue their lives of sin. Absolution to continue with inhumanity, somewhat relieved. I always wondered what the point was if not a single person really changed. The children continued to be beaten, and the animals in the stable continued to be led to the slaughter, sometimes even killed by their own hands, with incredible brutality. After the confession, people lied, stole, or broke the marriage as before. Low instincts remained and were acted out until the next confession. I often thought, confess on Sunday, pray in Our Father as penance, and be a monster the rest of the week, year after year until the end of life. What a destructive model, and for what? Jesus, confession was devised so that everything would be forgiven and nothing would really need to be made right. In silent agreement with the priest, events that call for reparation and conversion are simply wiped away with a few prayers. Confession is an instrument of the Dark Lords to keep people in twilight. Channeler. Yet even the youngest are trained to do this in the church. I remember the first time I went to confession as a 6-year-old, preparing for the first communion. I simply invented sins so that the priest would be satisfied and not be annoyed. I then kept this up for years. I couldn't do anything with the concept of sin, so I said things like I didn't follow my mama, or I had lied when I hadn't, so I was made to really lie through confession. What a topsy-turvy world. Jesus, being preserved, is the deeper meaning of confession, and it's the illusion of being freed from sins without having true insight or making amends. In addition, confession perpetuates the guilt concept so that people never get out of the spiral of guilt and sin. This type of forgiveness serves the sole purpose of allowing people to ease their consciences for a while and then continue with their wickedness. They remain the poor sinners that the Church wants them to be. True forgiveness presupposes deep inner knowledge and subsequently brings about conversion in men. As long as a person repeats his sins or is even urged to do so by confession, nothing can really change. Channeler. Confession is a placebo. Jesus, an illusion that has nothing to do with real freedom and genuine forgiveness. The sacraments. Channeler. Another aspect in the church has been bothering me for a long time. The sacraments. What do the sacraments, of which confession or penance is one, really accomplish? What is really about baptism, Eucharist, First Communion, Confirmation, the sacrament of matrimony, or the sacraments of death, also called anointing of the sick? Jesus. They are invitations that are supposed to bind you firmly to the material world. All these invitations have the sole purpose of closing your direct access to God and consolidating the power of the Church in your life. Therefore, these rituals recur at all major stages of a person's life. At the center is the Eucharist. In the process, people are regularly reenacted. For all people who don't participate in it, baptism is refreshed through marriage or anointing of the sick, and, as in the case of dying, reaffirmed beyond death. Every sacrament that follows baptism is a confirmation of the same. Sacraments have the power to close men's spiritual excesses, and they do it very effectively for most people. Channeler, what are the consequences of the sacrament of death? It seems to be that this one is special. Jesus, this is to keep the person bound to the church for the life after and for the next life. The contract with the people is strengthened beyond death by transferring it to the ethereal level. Channeler, but what if a person realizes after his death that everything was just hocus pocus? Can't he then simply dissolve these contracts? Jesus, contracts must be dissolved on the level on which they were concluded. That requires, apart from exceptions, a new embodiment in the context of the corresponding church. Then these agreements can be undone. Channeler, what exceptions are being referred to here? Jesus, people who, on the basis of their orders, have fully consciously consented to a life in the context of the church. Those who are endowed with orders to loosen the ground from within cannot be harmed, even by these initiations, since this person operates on a different spiritual mental level. From a certain point in becoming conscious, it doesn't matter what happens to you on a lower vibrational level. You can always brush it off after your journey and after you have completed your assignments. Consciousness makes all the difference. Channeler, what's interesting to me is that there are many people who have little or nothing to do with the church, yet they go and get the sacraments. A church wedding or a church funeral is still the ultimate for many people. Baptism is also indispensable for many. Why? Jesus, because the faith programs have been stored deeply in the cellular consciousness of people for centuries and over many incarnations. To break this up and release it requires a certain awareness. Not taking the church seriously can be a first step, but is too little for a detachment. Baptism, the sacrament of matrimony, and the last rites have such a significance because very great upheavals are always connected with these stations of life. The entry into life, the change in the family situation, or dying have a weight, where the manipulated people believe they need the assistance of the church. This is always to be seen under the aspect that church programming is taken from one life to the next. If someone becomes aware of this encroachment, then he can begin to clean it up. Anything else is ineffective, and contracts that outlast times remain in place. Channeler, after all, there is no need for a revolution on this issue. People can quietly say no thanks to the dubious blessings of the church. When I, as a budding theologian, realized what this organization was, I simply resigned. Later, I dissolved my vows, initiations, and contracts. quietly, I was liberated well. Priests and Catholic zealots threatened me with hell and eternal damnation. But you have to go through it, right? Jesus, resistance is always possible and must only be met properly. However, who really sees through something and has recognized it as true, he cannot be helped. This person feels every attack or resistance as confirmation of his doing. The process in which more and more people quietly say goodbye to the Roman Church is expanding more and more. The days of this and similar institutions are numbered. It is impossible that on a high vibrating earth, the spreaders can continue to exist before low vibration. I am with you, I remain with you, because this time needs heaven on earth, so that the earth can become heaven. I am Jesus, channeled by John J. Kazel, translation to English by Era of Light. Divine blessings to all. Don't forget to subscribe.